In a quiet village called Eldoria, Caleb lived an ordinary life, far from adventure. One day, while exploring a cave, he stumbled upon a glowing portal that pulled him into a strange and war-torn world. Confused and scared, Caleb met Lyra, a villager who revealed that he was the chosen one in an ancient prophecy. Overwhelmed by the weight of this destiny, Caleb felt small and unsure, facing a journey that could change everything for the people suffering under a cruel tyrant. Caleb woke up to the familiar sounds of his village, Eldoria. The sun peeked through his window, casting warm rays on his face. He stretched and listened to the gentle rustling of leaves outside, a reminder of the peaceful life he lived. But today felt different. There was an unusual energy in the air, a quiet whisper that seemed to call out to him. After a simple breakfast of bread and fruit, he decided to explore the nearby cave. It was a place he often visited, a sanctuary where he could escape his daily routines. As he approached the entrance, a strange light flickered from within. Curiosity pulled him closer. What could it be? He peered inside, and there it was, a glowing portal, shimmering and pulsating with an inviting light. "What is this?" Caleb wondered aloud, stepping closer. The light seemed to reach out to him, wrapping around him like a warm blanket. He took a deep breath, feeling the excitement and fear swirl in his stomach. Should I go in? He hesitated, glancing back at the village. The familiar sights of Eldoria felt distant now, as if they belonged to another world. He could hear the faint laughter of children and the chatter of villagers going about their day. But the portal called to him, louder than any sound he knew. With a final glance at the life he had always known, Caleb stepped through. The moment he crossed the threshold, confusion engulfed him. The light faded, and he found himself in a stark, war-torn realm. Dark skies loomed overhead, and the air was thick with despair. The vibrant colors of Eldoria were replaced by dull, lifeless shades. What happened here? He asked himself, feeling small and insignificant. Panic rose in his chest as he realized he was alone in a place filled with shadows and echoes of suffering. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence. "You're not alone." Caleb turned to see a young woman standing a few feet away. Her name was Lyra, and her eyes held both fear and determination. "You are the chosen one," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "The ancient prophecy speaks of you. You must save us from Malakar." "Chosen? Prophecy?" Caleb stammered, disbelief washing over him. "I'm just a villager. I can't help anyone. I don't even know where I am." Lyra stepped closer, her expression softening. "You are in the land of Eldoria, but not the Eldoria you know. This realm is suffering under the rule of Malakar. We believed that the one from your world would come to save us." Caleb shook his head, overwhelmed. "Why me? I'm not a hero. I've done nothing to deserve this." "Perhaps you have been chosen because you are ordinary," Lyra replied, her voice a gentle reminder. "But you have the potential to be extraordinary. Will you stand with us?" Fear gripped Caleb as he looked around at the destruction. He felt the weight of expectation pressing down on him, making him feel even smaller. "I don't know if I can." "That is the first step," she said softly. "To doubt is human. But you must choose. Will you turn away, or will you help us fight back?" Caleb's heart raced. The people in this realm were counting on him, yet he felt paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. Could he really be the one to bring hope back to this place? As he stood there, the weight of their desperate gaze settled on his shoulders. He wanted to run back through the portal, back to the safety of his ordinary life. But deep down, a flicker of something stirred within him, a spark of courage he had never known. With a shaky breath, Caleb finally spoke. I will try, but I don't know how." Lyra smiled, a glimmer of hope lighting her eyes. "That is enough for now. Together, we will find a way." And in that moment, a new path began to unfold before Caleb, one that would take him far from the ordinary life he once knew. As Caleb stood in the midst of the rebel camp, he felt the weight of the prophecy pressing heavily on his shoulders. He had gone from a simple villager in Eldoria to the chosen one in a world torn apart by war. With every story he heard, the reality of the suffering around him became clearer, and he could no longer ignore the pain of those who had suffered under Malakar's rule. "Who is this Malakar?" Caleb asked, his voice trembling slightly. He sat with a group of rebels gathered around a flickering fire, their faces illuminated by the flames. One of the rebels, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, spoke up. "He is a tyrant, a monster who takes everything from us, our homes, our families, all for his greed." His voice was thick with anger. Another rebel, a woman with deep-set eyes, added, "He has enslaved our people and crushed any hope we have left. We are nothing but shadows in his world." Caleb listened intently, feeling a knot tighten in his stomach. He thought back to his life in Eldoria, where he had spent his mornings tending to his garden and sharing laughter with friends. How trivial those concerns seemed now. "Why did I have to be chosen?" he muttered, mostly to himself. "I am just a farmer. I know nothing of battle or leadership." A rebel named Soren, who had been quiet until now, leaned in closer. "You may think you are just a farmer, but you have something we need. You have a chance to change things. We have all suffered, Caleb. It's time to stand up and fight for our future." As the night wore on, Caleb's heart grew heavier. He felt guilty for not having experienced the same suffering as these rebels. How could he claim to be their leader when he had lived a life of comfort? The next day, Caleb decided to venture out with a group of rebels to witness the devastation caused by Malakar's forces. As they walked through the ruins of a once thriving village, he saw the remnants of homes reduced to rubble and the faces of people filled with despair. "Look at what he has done," Lyra said softly, standing beside him. Her voice shook with emotion. "These were our friends, our families. We must fight back." Caleb felt a surge of anger and a sense of responsibility. "I can't just stand by and do nothing," he said, determination filling his voice. "But I don't know how to help." "You are already helping by being here," Lyra replied, her eyes brightening. "You can inspire others. We need someone like you to rally the people." They continued walking, and Caleb's heart ached at the sight of children playing in the dirt, their laughter contrasting sharply with the destruction surrounding them. How could he turn back now? Later that evening, as they returned to the camp, Caleb sat alone, staring into the fire. He wrestled with his thoughts, the choice looming over him like a storm cloud. Should he return to his quiet life? Or should he stay and fight, knowing it might cost him everything he held dear? "Caleb?" Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts. She approached him, her expression serious. "You can't hide from this. You are meant to lead us. You have to decide what you want to do." "I don't want to put anyone in danger," Caleb replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if I fail? What if I lead you all to ruin?" Lyra knelt beside him, her gaze steady. "We all take risks, Caleb. But we can't let fear control us. The only way to honor those who have suffered is to fight for a better future." As Caleb looked into her eyes, he felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps he could be the hero they needed. Maybe stepping into this role would not just be about him, but about everyone who had been hurt by Malakar. With a deep breath, Caleb made his decision. "I will stay. I will fight. For them. And for a chance at peace." Lyra smiled, a spark of encouragement lighting her features. "Then let's prepare. Together, we will find a way to bring Malakar down." And with that, Caleb felt the weight of the prophecy shift. He was no longer just a farmer. He was a part of something greater, a story that needed to be told. The journey ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to embrace his role in the fight for Eldoria. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the battlefield, where Calum found himself standing with the rebels. Today was the day he would join them in their fight against Malakar's forces. The air was thick with tension, and his heart raced with both fear and excitement. "Are you ready, Calum?" Lyra asked, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. She stood beside him, her determined gaze focused on the horizon where the enemy camp loomed. I think so," Calum replied, unsure how to convey the storm of emotions swirling inside him. He had never fought before, and the weight of his new role pressed down on him like a heavy stone. As the battle horn sounded, Calum felt a surge of adrenaline. The rebels charged forward, and he followed, his feet moving almost on instinct. In the heat of the moment, he found himself dodging arrows and swinging his sword, feeling an unexpected thrill as he fought alongside those who had once seemed so foreign to him. "Look out!" yelled Thorn, his voice cutting through the noise. Calum turned just in time to see an enemy soldier aiming for him. With a quick motion, he raised his sword and blocked the attack, surprising himself with his speed. "Nice move!" Thorn shouted, a grin spreading across his face. "Keep going, you're doing great." Encouraged by Thorn's words, Calum pushed forward. He felt a sense of purpose growing within him, a fire igniting that had been dormant for far too long. Each clash of swords and the cries of the wounded only fueled his determination. This was his chance to prove himself, to show that he could be a leader, just like Thorn. But as the battle raged on, the tide suddenly turned. A loud crash echoed, and Calum watched in horror as a group of rebels fell under a sudden ambush from Malakar's forces. "No!" Calum shouted, panic rising in his chest. "We need to regroup." But before he could act, a shadow loomed over him. An enemy soldier charged at him, sword raised high. In a split second, Calum reacted, striking the soldier down with a force he didn't know he possessed. Yet, as the soldier fell, a wave of guilt washed over him. "What have I become?" he whispered, his heart heavy as he glanced back at his fallen comrades. The battle continued, and he fought on, but the joy of his newfound abilities was overshadowed by a growing sense of dread. Then came the worst moment of all. Thorn, his closest ally, was suddenly surrounded. "Calum, help!" Thorn cried out, desperation lacing his voice. Calum's heart raced as he dashed toward him, but the chaos of battle swirled around them, and he could see Thorn struggling against multiple foes. "Hold on, I'm coming!" Calum yelled, but it was too late. He watched in horror as Thorn was struck down, his body collapsing onto the ground. "No, Thorn!" Calum fell to his knees, the weight of grief crashing over him like a tidal wave. The joy of battle turned to ash in his mouth. He had fought to protect his friends, yet he had failed. Lyra knelt beside him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "We need to keep fighting, Calum. Thorn wouldn't want us to give up." But Calum shook his head, tears brimming in his eyes. "How can I lead them? I couldn't save him. I don't deserve this title." "Thorn believed in you," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "He saw something in you that you may not see yourself. You are stronger than you think. You must honor his memory by continuing to fight." As her words sank in, Calum felt a flicker of resolve. Thorn's sacrifice could not be in vain. He wiped the tears from his eyes, standing tall amidst the chaos. "Let's finish this," he said, his voice stronger now. With renewed determination, he rose to his feet. The battle was not over, and he had to find a way to lead the rebels, to fight for those who had fallen. As he charged back into the fray, Calum knew he was far from perfect, but he had to embrace the path that lay before him. The trials of his heart had only just begun, but he was ready to face them head-on. Calum stood on the edge of the training grounds, his heart heavy with the memory of Thorn. The sun rose slowly, casting a warm glow over the battlefield. Each ray of light felt like a reminder of the sacrifice his friend made. Calum clenched his fists, determination bubbling inside him. He could not let Thorn's death be in vain. "Today, we honor Thorn," Calum announced to the gathered rebels. "We will train harder than ever to protect each other and to fight against Malakar." The rebels nodded, some with tears in their eyes. They understood the weight of loss. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. "Calum, you are not alone in this. We fight for each other now." Nodding, Calum felt a sense of unity wash over him. "Together, we will grow stronger. Let's begin." As the day unfolded, Calum trained tirelessly. He practiced with swords, learning to block and strike. Each swing reminded him of Thorn's laughter, of the friend who believed in him. He could almost hear Thorn's voice, urging him to push harder. "You can do this, Calum. Just believe in yourself," he imagined Thorn saying. Lyra watched him closely, her eyes filled with encouragement. "You're getting better every day. I see the warrior in you." Her words sparked a flame of hope in Calum's heart. "Thank you, Lyra," he said, pausing to catch his breath. "I couldn't have done this without you. You've helped me find my way." "Just remember, we all need each other," Lyra replied, her voice soft yet firm. "You are not just fighting for yourself anymore. You are fighting for all of us." As the days passed, Calum faced Malakar's forces in several small skirmishes. Each battle tested his skills and his heart. He fought fiercely, fueled by the desire to protect his new family. With every clash of swords, he felt his confidence grow. The rebels began to see him as more than just a young man from a quiet village. They saw him as a leader. After one particularly tough battle, the rebels gathered around a fire to heal and recover. Calum sat with them, the warmth of the flames flickering in his eyes. He looked at each face, each person who had fought bravely beside him. "You all fought bravely today," he said, his voice steady. "I am proud to stand by you. Together, we can take down Malakar." The group cheered, their spirits lifted. "For Eldoria!" they shouted in unison. That night, as Calum lay under the stars, he thought about the journey that had brought him here. He was no longer just a boy hiding in the shadows of his village. He was becoming a warrior, a leader. "Thorn," he whispered into the night, "I hope you can see me now. I will fight for you and for everyone else who has suffered." With each passing moment, Calum felt a deeper connection to his comrades. They shared stories, laughter, and tears, creating bonds that were stronger than any sword. He realized that unity was their greatest weapon against Malakar. One evening, as they prepared for another skirmish, Lyra approached Calum. "You've come so far, Calum. I believe in you. Just remember, it's okay to feel scared. It's okay to feel pain." Her words resonated deeply. "I do feel scared," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I know I cannot give up. Not now. Not when so much is at stake." Lyra smiled gently. "That's what makes you a true leader. You face your fears, yet you stand tall. We will face Malakar together, no matter what." Emboldened by her support, Calum felt a fire ignite within him. He was not just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for all those who had lost hope. The dawn of the next day brought a new challenge. Calum and his rebels prepared to face Malakar's forces again, their hearts beating in unison. They were ready to embrace the fight, ready to protect their home and each other. With each step forward, Calum became more than a warrior. He became a symbol of hope for Eldoria. And in that moment, he knew that he would not back down. The warrior within him had awakened, and he was determined to lead his people to victory. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the battlefield as Calum stood with the rebels, his heart racing. The air buzzed with tension, a silent promise of the fight that lay ahead. They gathered in a clearing, surrounded by trees that had witnessed countless struggles. Calum could see the fear in the eyes of his comrades, but also a flicker of hope. "Today, we fight for our freedom," he shouted, trying to rally their spirits. "We fight for our families, our friends, and for Eldoria. We will not let Malachar take anything more from us." His voice echoed through the group, and he saw their resolve strengthen. Lyra stepped closer, her hand resting on his arm. "Calum, you are ready. Remember what we fought for. Remember Thorn." Her eyes shone with unshed tears, but her expression was firm. She believed in him. "I know," Calum replied, swallowing the knot in his throat. "But what if I fail? What if I can't protect you all?" Doubt crept in, but he pushed it aside. "I can't let that happen." "Then don't think of failure," Lyra said softly. "Think of what we can gain. Think of the future." She squeezed his arm, grounding him. As the rebels prepared, Calum felt a wave of determination wash over him. He took a deep breath, focusing on the moment. This battle was not just about defeating Malachar. It was about embracing the warrior within him. He thought of Thorn, of the sacrifices made, and of the lives that depended on their success. The sound of horns echoed in the distance, signaling the approach of Malachar's forces. Calum's heart raced as he took his place at the front of the line. He could see the dark figures approaching, each one a reminder of the pain they had caused. "Stay strong," he called out to his comrades. "We are not alone in this fight." The rebels tightened their grips on their weapons, ready to face the enemy. As the two sides clashed, the sound of steel against steel filled the air. Calum fought fiercely, his movements becoming more fluid as he found his rhythm. Each swing of his sword felt like a dance, a way to channel his grief into strength. In the midst of the chaos, Calum's eyes locked onto Malachar. The tyrant stood tall, a menacing figure at the back of his army. Malachar's eyes glinted with malice as he called out, "You think you can defeat me, boy? You are nothing without your friends." Calum felt a surge of anger, but also fear. Memories of loss flooded back, each one a painful reminder of what was at stake. He took a step forward, determination filling his heart. "I am not nothing. I fight for those I love." With a fierce battle cry, he charged toward Malachar, dodging attacks from the enemy. As he closed the distance, he remembered Lyra's words, the warmth of their shared moments, and the laughter of friends long gone. They fueled his resolve, and he felt their presence with him. Malachar swung his sword, aiming for Calum's heart, but Calum was quicker. He sidestepped and delivered a blow that sent Malachar stumbling back. "You will not take our home," Calum shouted, feeling the strength of his allies behind him. The fight raged on, but in that moment, Calum realized something profound. True leadership was not about being the strongest or the bravest. It was about being vulnerable and embracing the love and memories of those who had fallen. He could feel Thorn's spirit guiding him, pushing him to fight harder. With renewed strength, Calum faced Malachar once more. "This ends today," he declared, raising his sword high. "For Eldoria! For my friends!" With a final clash, Calum struck Malachar down, the tyrant's reign ending with a heavy thud. Silence fell over the battlefield as the rebels stood together, their breaths mingling in disbelief and relief. They had done it. They had won. But as Calum looked around at the faces of his comrades, he felt the weight of their sacrifices. The victory was bittersweet, marked by the loss of friends and the scars of battle. Yet, in that moment, hope began to bloom in Eldoria. They had broken the chains of tyranny, and together, they would rebuild. Calum stood at the edge of Eldoria, the familiar landscape stretching before him. The once peaceful village was now a canvas of hope and determination. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his journey settle in his heart. The colors of dawn painted the sky, reminding him of the battles fought and the lives lost. With each step he took, he felt the strength of his experiences guiding him. As he walked through the village, Caleb noticed the villagers working together. They were rebuilding their homes, laughing, and sharing stories of resilience. It filled him with warmth to see the spirit of unity blossoming among them. He approached a group of villagers who were clearing debris from a fallen structure. "Let me help you with that," Caleb offered, stepping forward. One of the villagers, an older man with kind eyes, looked up and smiled. "Thank you, Caleb. It's good to see you back. We heard about your bravery in the battle." Caleb shook his head, feeling a twinge of humility. "I couldn't have done it without all of you. Together, we achieved something great." The villagers nodded in agreement, and Caleb realized how important it was to acknowledge their efforts. It was not just about him. It was about the entire community rising together. As they worked side by side, he listened to their stories, their laughter echoing in the air. Later that day, Caleb gathered the villagers in the square. He stood on a low platform, looking out at the faces that had once seemed so distant to him. "Thank you all for your hard work and support. We have faced darkness, but together, we can create a brighter future." A young woman stepped forward, her voice filled with emotion. "Caleb, we are grateful for your leadership. You have shown us what it means to be brave. We want to learn from you." He smiled, feeling a sense of purpose swell within him. "I am still learning, just like all of you. But I believe each of us has a warrior inside. We can all rise to challenges if we support one another." Another villager, a tall man with a deep voice, spoke up. "How can we harness our strengths? What should we do next?" Caleb paused, reflecting on his own journey. "First, we need to share our stories. Each of you has faced struggles that have shaped who you are. By sharing, we grow stronger together. We can learn from one another and turn our pain into power." The crowd murmured with agreement, and Caleb felt a surge of hope. He continued, "Let's set up gatherings where we can share our experiences. We'll create a space for healing and learning. Together, we will rebuild not just our village, but also our spirits." The villagers clapped, their faces filled with determination. Caleb felt a connection with them, a bond that had grown through shared hardship. They were not just villagers, they were his friends and allies. As the sun began to set, painting the horizon in shades of orange and pink, Caleb took a moment to reflect on the journey ahead. He turned to Lyra, who stood beside him, her eyes shining with pride. "You've become a true leader, Caleb. You have inspired them." He nodded, his heart full. "I couldn't have done this without you, Lyra. Your strength and support have guided me. Together, we will help Eldoria heal." Lyra smiled, her hand resting on his shoulder. "We will face whatever comes next, side by side." As the villagers began to disperse, Caleb felt a sense of readiness fill him. He looked towards the horizon, where the sun dipped below the mountains, and he knew that challenges would come. But he also understood that he was not alone. With the community by his side, they could face anything. In that moment, Caleb embraced the lesson that had emerged from his journey. Even in the darkest times, hope could flourish, and ordinary individuals could rise to become heroes. And so, with a heart full of courage and a spirit ignited by unity, Caleb prepared for the new beginning that awaited him and his beloved Eldoria. Share this story if you believe that unity and resilience can overcome even the darkest challenges. Leave a comment about a time when your community came together to support one another, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring tales like this one.